Beloved, have you ever felt like you're walking through life with a weight so heavy, it feels like you can't take another step? Like the struggles, the pain, the unanswered prayers are too much to bear? What if I told you that in those very moments of darkness, I have always been with you, whispering words of love and hope that you've yet to hear? Stay with me, for in this message, my beloved, you will uncover the truth that will transform your heart and light your way forward. Your journey is not over, it has only just begun. Let me show you the strength and love that are waiting for you right now. Don't miss this. Watch until the end. This person was shocked when they realized that you were the one who had been whispering to their heart all along, guiding them through moments of despair and darkness. They had felt lost for so long, believing that they were alone in their suffering, that the weight of their world was too heavy to bear. But in that quiet moment, when they felt your presence more strongly than ever, the veil lifted, and they understood that it was you who had always been there, softly leading them forward, even when they couldn't see your hand. It wasn't in the grand gestures or the loud proclamations that your voice was heard, but in the stillness, through the deep sighs of their soul, through the warmth they felt in the coldest of nights, and through the inexplicable peace that washed over them when their heart was broken. You were the whisper in the wind, the fluttering of leaves in the trees that reminded them they were never alone. The confusion they had felt, wondering where you were, why their prayers seemed unanswered, was because they were searching for you in all the wrong places. They were looking for you in the noise of the world, when you had always been in the quiet of their spirit, waiting patiently for them to hear your voice. As the realization settled in, tears filled their eyes. They had thought you were distant, unreachable, yet you had never left their side. In the hardest of moments, in the storms of life, you were the anchor that kept them grounded. You were there when they wanted to give up, holding them up with your love when they had nothing left to hold on to. And in that moment, the weight they had carried for so long began to lift, as your love filled the empty spaces inside them. They understood that the trials they had faced, the pain they had endured, were not signs of your abandonment, but proof of your deep commitment to their transformation. You had never promised an easy life, but you had promised to walk with them through every step, every heartache, and every joy. And so, with newfound strength and faith, they took their first step forward, no longer fearing the future, for they knew you were beside them. You, the one who had been there in the quiet, in the unseen moments, had now made yourself known in the loudest way possible, through the transformation of their soul. As the person stood in the quiet space of their heart, filled with the overwhelming truth that you had been with them all along, something began to stir inside them, a deep sense of gratitude, mixed with wonder. How could they have missed you? How could they have believed that you had abandoned them, when you were, in fact, so near? They began to look back on their life, and in every tear, every moment of hopelessness, they began to see your love woven through the very fabric of their journey. You were there, not just in the triumphs, but in the struggles. You were there when they fell, lifting them when they couldn't stand on their own. And in that sacred moment of understanding, they realized that your love wasn't merely a passive presence. It was the force that had been transforming them, shaping their character, even in their darkest moments. When they thought they were lost, when they cried out in desperation, you had been quietly speaking to them. You had been there in their silence, in their pain, urging them to keep going, to not give up, even when they couldn't see the way forward. Your love, as unshakable as the mountains, had always been the foundation under their feet, even when they had stumbled and fallen. It was your love that held them up, whether they saw it or not. They began to understand that your plan had always been for their good, even when it felt like the weight of the world was pressing down on them. You knew the depth of their suffering, the intensity of their battles, and yet you allowed them to walk through the fire, knowing it was the fire that would refine them. It wasn't because you wanted to see them hurt, but because you knew the strength that would be forged in their soul. Through every trial, you were there, never abandoning them, always molding them into something more beautiful than they could ever imagine. And now, with a heart finally open to your presence, they realized that the very struggles they had cursed were the very things that had brought them closer to you. The pain, the loss, the loneliness, these were the things that stripped away the false hopes, the illusions of control, and allowed them to truly see your hand in their life. You weren't just a comfort in times of need, you were the reason they had survived, the reason they were still standing. Every moment of pain was a moment where you whispered your truth into their heart, molding them, teaching them, reminding them of your love. But now, with this new awareness, something within them began to shift. The burden of resentment they once carried toward their past began to fade, replaced with a deep understanding that their journey had been necessary. It wasn't that they needed to go through suffering to prove themselves to you, but that through suffering, they would be refined. Your love had been there all along, and now they could see it. They could feel it in every breath, in every step, in every moment. It wasn't just a love that healed the broken, it was a love that transformed the soul, that breathed life into the dead places within them, restoring them to wholeness. In this divine revelation, they knew that they were not just a survivor of the storms of life, they were a testament to the power of your love. You had made them stronger than they ever thought possible, not through avoiding pain, but through walking with them in the midst of it. You were not just a distant God watching from afar, but a present Savior, walking beside them, within them, through it all. And now, their hearts swelled with an unshakable confidence that no matter what the future held, your love would never leave them. It would be the foundation, the anchor, and the strength to carry them through whatever came their way. And so, they took that first step, no longer bound by fear or doubt. They walked forward in the light of your love, knowing that you were guiding every step, that you had already gone before them, preparing the way. The past, with all its struggles, was no longer a chain around their neck. It had become the very soil in which their faith had taken root, the foundation of their strength. And now, with your love as their compass, they were free to live the life you had always intended for them, a life of purpose, of hope, and of unshakable faith in your eternal presence. As they moved forward, step by step, the weight of their past began to feel lighter. It wasn't that the pain was erased. No, the scars were still there, reminders of the battles they had fought and the wounds they had endured. But now, those scars no longer defined them. They had become symbols of resilience, markers of strength, reminders of your presence in the deepest of their darkest hours. They were no longer victims of their circumstances. They were conquerors, standing tall not because they had avoided pain, but because your love had carried them through it. Each day, as they awoke, your presence was no longer a distant whisper but a constant companion. They began to see the world through different eyes, not eyes filled with fear or regret, but eyes filled with hope and possibility. They could feel your love, not just in the moments of peace, but in the moments of struggle as well. Where they once saw obstacles, they now saw opportunities to trust you more deeply, to lean into your strength when their own was failing, and to know that no matter what came their way, you were there. They had learned that your love was not just a balm for their wounds, but a fire that ignited purpose within them. It was a love that didn't just heal, it empowered. It wasn't just a comfort in times of sorrow, but the strength to rise, the courage to keep going, even when the path seemed uncertain. As they walked forward, they began to see that their journey wasn't just for them, it was for those around them. Every hardship they had endured, every trial they had faced, had been preparing them to be a light to others. They now understood that their story wasn't just about their own healing. It was about sharing the hope they had found in you with the world around them. In the moments when doubt crept in, when fear tried to whisper that they were not enough, Your love surged within them like a mighty river. And in that moment, they knew the truth. They were enough, because your grace had made them enough. They didn't need to prove their worth, for your love had already declared it. They didn't need to fight for acceptance, because in you, they were already fully accepted. They were free from the chains of guilt, shame, and fear that had once held them captive. And as they walked in that freedom, they felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over them, the kind of peace that only you could give. And with that peace came a deep, unwavering trust in your plan. No longer did they need to control every outcome, every circumstance. They had seen too much of your faithfulness to doubt your hand in their life. They knew that even in the seasons of waiting, even in the moments of uncertainty, you were working. You were always working, always moving, always guiding, even when it seemed as though nothing was happening. Every moment was an opportunity for growth, for transformation, and for drawing closer to you. The burdens they once carried, those heavy stones of regret and fear, were now lifted, replaced by the joy of knowing that you were the one who held their future. And as they walked forward, hand in hand with you, they began to realize that this journey, though difficult at times, was the most beautiful part of their story. For it was in the journey that they had discovered you, your love, your faithfulness, your power, and it was in that discovery that they had found their true self. Now, they lived each day with purpose, knowing that every step was a reflection of your glory, every action a testimony to your transforming love. And as they moved forward in faith, they shared that love with others, becoming a beacon of hope in a world that so desperately needed it. For they knew now, in the very depths of their soul, that the greatest gift they could give to the world was the same love you had shown them, a love that heals, that transforms, that never fails. And so they walked, no longer in fear, no longer in doubt, but in the light of your truth, knowing that whatever the future held, they would face it together. For you, the one who had always been with them, would never leave their side.